Okay. This is my third time recording. Hopefully, I can get this to at least 8 minutes, 10 at the most. There's no way it's gonna be 5. I have so much stuff I want to talk about, and my paper is nearly finished. So, yeah, let's get right in. I may talk very fast, which is just kind of a normal thing for me. Yeah, so my research paper was on female frontline service, which to me includes nurses, spies, and female soldiers. Two reasons why I wanted to do this was one, in January, Dr. Elder talked about a book that was called They Fought Like Demons, and I was dying to read it. Two, I watched a crash course video where they talked about a 19th century school of thought called the Cult of Domesticity, which is made up mostly of 4 cardinal virtues: piety, purity, submission, and domesticity. Essentially, you should be a stay-at-home housewife who submits to her husband and is religious and pure. And yeah, basically, that's it. That's all a woman was. She wasn't supposed to exert herself in any kind of strenuous physical activity, because they didn't think that she could handle it. She can't handle a high-stress situation, like, competitive work. And that's it. That's all a woman could really do. So, what I specifically wanted to focus on in my paper was how these 3 groups of women affected the Civil War, as well as the women's suffrage movement and women's rights movements down the road. So let's start with nurses. Nurses helped make up for what the medical system on both sides was lacking. They did not have enough manpower to keep up with the wounded and sick coming in. Nurses were mostly men before the Civil War, and when these male nurses could not keep up with everything, they realized these women are begging us to come help. They're begging us to let them in and help take care of these sick. We need them now. We're just gonna have to accept it. They weren't taken very seriously at first, but eventually they were given actual work. Eventually they were able to learn how to dress a wound. They were able to learn how to take care of someone who was sick. Granted, it's 19th century medicine, so it's not great, but it's something. So there was that. But it was also the first job that women in mass numbers were joining. It's the first time that mass female employment is implemented. Granted, most don't stay after the Civil War, but it proves that women can handle this. It proves that women are capable of handling high stress situations like someone dying. The next group I focused on was spies, which completely went against the cult of domesticity. So, one, how they helped the Civil War. Women were actually considered better spies than men, because their enemy is not going to suspect a high-class pretty lady who most likely believes in the cult of domesticity to be smuggling war tactics and weapons across enemy lines. So women were not checked very thoroughly. So women, like I said, would smuggle messages, they would smuggle weapons, and even people. Both Harriet Tubman and Elizabeth Van Lew smuggled either soldiers or slaves back to the Union. So, let's see. Elizabeth Van Lew actually helped several prison breaks from Libby Prison, and everyone knows Harriet Tubman was the first woman to lead a raid to free slaves. Everyone knows her. So there's that, but also with women, it's more kind of proof that women were smarter than they were given credit for. They were braver than they were given credit for. These women clearly were not submissive. They were not domestic. And yet, they helped in such a grand way that maybe they deserve a little bit more respect. The next group, female soldiers. So they helped in a very big way. As the war went on and your numbers are starting to dwindle more and more, you are running out of people that can enlist. Everyone is either too young or they are too old, and you need bodies. So, women, even though their commanders didn't know it, filled those roles. Most were not discovered until they either died and their bodies were examined, or they pushed a human being out of them. And that was basically it. It was super easy for women to hide because of the fact that no one's uniform fit right, and it was so baggy and there wasn't really much of a reason to take it off. So most were not discovered, hence why there is an estimate of how many served, somewhere between 500 to 1,000, because we don't know for certain who they were. And so again, they helped in the Civil War in the sense of putting bodies on a battlefield. Several served while pregnant. Several were injured and returned to service, like any soldier. Okay, except the pregnant part. But they did what any soldier would have done. How they helped the women's rights movement, huge. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony used their service as a reason for why women should be held on the same standard as men. Like, look at all these women. They fought beside men, and yet they are not given the same right that all the men they fought with are. They should be allowed to vote. They should be respected as veterans. And Clara Barton said that female frontline service pushed the women's rights movement forward 50 years. And so basically all of these women just kind of showed that the prevailing mindset of the time, that women weren't strong, they weren't smart, they were these porcelain dolls that needed to be taken care of. And all of them proved that they're far more capable than you give them credit for. And the biggest reason I wanted to do my research on this was because it is criminal how little they are talked about. Because when I was doing my research, I only recognized 3 names, and that's it. Of the hundreds and hundreds of women who served or helped a wounded soldier or freed a slave or a prisoner. And they're not talked about, and no one knows who they are. And it's sad. It made me sad. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my paper in a nutshell. My discussion question, extremely open-ended, 100% opinion. If you wanted to serve for the Union in any capacity, you wanted to help in any way you could, would you prefer to be a nurse, a spy, or a soldier? I hope you got a laugh over me fumbling through this presentation, and I hope you are healthy. So, yeah. Bye.